program to be as close as possible to 1 hour. We could stretch it in exceptional circumstances to say an hour and a half, but that is the absolute maximum. For a start, as I said, there will be an opportunity for opening statements, and the parties actually agreed that Mr. Kriel will present his opening statement first, and there will be a time limit of maximum 15 minutes. 15 minutes is the maximum, there's no minimum, but 15 minutes will be enough. Then I will have to stop whichever participant takes longer than the prescribed 15 minutes. So first of all, we give Mr. Kriel a chance.
Chairperson, Mr. Lesufi, audience, it's a privilege to be here today. I want to start off by thanking the people of Tembisa for the hospitality that we have received here today. Over the years in visiting townships, that is something I've become accustomed to. A very long time ago, I ran the Soweto Marathon. I know you won't believe me at this stage. But at that stage, I needed water quite frequently, and the people of Soweto came to the party with water, and today Tembisa has come to the party, as the chairperson mentioned, with Fred Cook and Cook Sister. Thank you for that. I also want to thank the MEC for saying that we should have a public debate. I think all of us in this hall and most people in the country know that education is a serious challenge, and that we should have these kind of debates to try and find solutions so that there's a bright future for all our children. And then the last word of thanks is to the team of the MEC. I see they put on Twitter a banner for today's debate, and I love the photograph of myself. It's a few years ago without many scars of married life, and I hope you're not disappointed today if you see how I really look. All these nice things being said, I think let's come down to the chase, and what is the real elephant in the room from AfriForum side that we see? We are worried about the fact that we believe the MEC has a negative attitude towards Afrikaans. And illustrated on Twitter when he said that he's irritated by the fact that we still have Afrikaans schools in 2016. And we know what the Constitutional Court judgment is, and if you read that Twitter, the worrying fact is this judgment going to be used in a way that would stop Afrikaans schools from existing? You would hear nice words that the introduction of English in the school's language policy would not threat Afrikaans. But unfortunately, if you look at history, and we should learn from history and not be naive, when the Rand Afrikaans University, which was an Afrikaans university, introduced English, it was said that it won't harm Afrikaans and there would be both languages would be accommodated. Today we know the University of Johannesburg is totally English. Even the greatest investigator would not find Afrikaans at that campus. And the same process we see on other campuses. You see what's happening at the University of the Free State. I know we're speaking about schools. I'm using these examples because we've seen this with regard to Afrikaans schools as well. There are many Afrikaans schools that are today English only, which also started when we said, let's introduce both languages. And if you look at between 2008 and 2012, the number of Afrikaans schools reduced by 15%. And that is what we are worried about, nothing else. We want to make sure that mother tongue education, Afrikaans kids have access to that. And unfortunately, most people don't have access, but we should, rather than breaking down mother tongue education, make sure that we extend it to all children in our country that are able to develop to their fullest extent. I think if you look at Afrikaners today, and I don't speak on behalf of all of them, I speak on behalf of our membership base and our support base, which we believe is substantial, there's not a lot that this community wants. I think it does not want to take over the country, does not want to take over the government, but what we want to see is that after the 1994 settlement, that we can participate to eradicate inequalities in our society and fight poverty, but at the same time that culture and language is protected. And if you look what is happening on campuses and people openly saying Afrikaans must fall, it seems that the 1994 agreement is being broken, and of course that would have a negative impact on all of us. When we fight for Afrikaans schools, we also in the same breath say that we want every black child in this country to have access to quality education. That for us is the way to take the country forward. If people don't have access to quality education, what we will see in the end is that the income gaps and inequalities in our society will persist for many decades to come. And we believe the move towards the Anglicization of our schools is not only to the detriment of Afrikaans children, it's to the detriment of the vast majority of black children in this country whose mother tongue is not English. So we believe English is not the way to provide access, it's actually a barrier to access to good education. One of the things that I started thinking about when the MEC and myself had an engagement on Twitter, it was 2 weeks ago, 11:30 on a Saturday night. I thought the MEC would have been doing some other work, and I also had other work, but it's nice to engage on Twitter. I thought to myself, I think there are myths in our society that brings this confusion and disagreement. One of the myths is that Afrikaans as a medium of instruction is a barrier to quality education. And the reason why I'm saying it's a myth, if you look at the demographics and statistics, only 5.8% of schools in this country, we have approximately 24,500 schools. Only 5.8% of those schools are Afrikaans schools, even though 14% of our population are Afrikaans speaking. If you look at the former Model C Afrikaans schools, which is seen as a barrier in our society, and from our side we said we believe the MEC targets those schools. Those schools are only 2.5% of the schools in our country. It's just over 600 of them. So even if you anglicize all 2.5%, you won't bring about access to the majority of people to quality education. So we believe the target is in the wrong place. The real enemy that we all need to fight is that 80% of our schools in the country are dysfunctional. And I know previously when I mentioned this to the Minister of Sport, he was angry with me saying such a thing, but then I went to look up where does this figure come from, and it was actually said by the Minister of Basic Education, Minister Angie Motshekga. This figure was later checked by Africa Check, which found it to be true, and the fact is a dysfunctional school is a school unable to transfer knowledge effectively to children. The problem from my perspective is that the South African Democratic Teachers Union that we see in our schools has a grip on our schools. We've seen the report on the positions being sold, and I've heard of many instances where teachers don't pitch up for class, they are not doing their work properly, and then they are protected by SADU. And I think what we should do, and I urge the MEC to take on SADU, even though they are an alliance partner of the ANC, because we owe it to our children to break the power they have, and that is where we need to focus and not make the small number of Afrikaans schools an easy target. The second myth is that Afrikaans schools are portrayed as exclusive white spaces. And today I want to challenge the MEC to show me one public school in this province, an Afrikaans public school, that is an exclusive white space. That's simply not the case. My own children are in Afrikaans public schools, and there are numerous black children in those schools. We know that the MEC's own child, he was in an Afrikaans school, and it shows that it's not an exclusive white space. The second thing is that Africans with a lighter complexion, such as myself, that speak Afrikaans, are only 40% of the total Afrikaans speaking community. 60% are people that don't have the same complexion as myself, or I don't have the same complexion as them. So to say that Afrikaans is a white language, I think is a myth that needs to be broken, and to say that it's not a barrier it's not an exclusive white space. The thing I want the MEC to answer to, it's a fact, especially in the north of the country, the majority of students in these Afrikaans schools are white, but as I've said, it's not exclusively white. But can a school only be legitimate if the majority of children are black? And I don't think that is what our Constitution states when it says we need to have unity in diversity. It's not diversity if every school is English and a majority black school. That's definitely not diversity. And that's why I'm saying let's focus on the real problem. For me and for AfriForum and for most Afrikaners, black people aren't our enemy. We share this beautiful country. We have to find solutions, and a minimum that we want as a cultural community to continue to exist is to have inclusive Afrikaans schools. And by inclusive, that everyone should be able to have access if they want to study in Afrikaans. And I think an effort to master the English language is just as in the same category as mastering the Afrikaans language. So if you say Afrikaans is a barrier, well then I'm telling you English is also definitely a barrier. The MEC, my closing remark, the MEC said after the Constitutional Court ruling that this is a victory for the people that struggled in 1976. And I don't believe that is an appropriate comparison to make, because what is happening now, in 1976, schools were forced to use Afrikaans as a language. And by not allowing Afrikaans schools, pupils are now going to be forced to use English. And that is the same mistake that was made in 1976. We should not make it again. And that is why, from AfriForum side, we believe that there are some things in life worth campaigning for, worth fighting for, and Afrikaans is definitely one of those things.
Thank you, Mr. Kriel. You stayed well within the 15 minutes limit, and we'll now grant Mr. Lesufi an opportunity.
Thank you so much, Program Director. And thanks, Kallie, for your inputs and for agreeing that we have these discussions. Remember, we liberated this country through discussions. When we met in Kodesa, that's how we liberated this country. And the issues that we are raising are issues that can only be liberated when we talk this way. So I really want to thank you and AfriForum for agreeing to have these discussions here in Tembisa. Fellow South Africans, we are better off together. And I want to repeat this statement. We are better off together. If there is someone that believes that it is only his children that matters, or her children that matters, I will be the first one to condemn that person. To us, all our children are equal in front of our eyes, and they deserve quality education. All. And we're very clear in our, and there are three things so that people must not think that the issues that we are raising them because in this MEC, there are three important documents that guide everything we do. It's not me. One of the most important documents is the Freedom Charter. It states very clear that the doors of learning and culture shall be open for all. The doors of learning and culture shall be opened for all. So it's not me. And I know people target me because maybe I'm darker, tall, easily identifiable. It's not me. And that's the myth I want to destroy within the African community. I'm not your enemy, I'll never be your enemy. I'm defending something that is very important, that the doors of learning and culture shall be opened for all. It doesn't say the doors of learning and culture shall be opened for the privileged few. It doesn't say the doors of learning shall be opened for those that speak Zulu. It doesn't say the doors of learning and culture shall be open for those that speak another language. Say all of us will be equal before the law. That's the first document that I want to refer to South Africans. The second document is the constitution of this country. It recognizes all languages. Actually, we've got 11 official languages. And I won't stand here and say Afrikaans is under attack when the constitution that I took an oath on says that all languages are equal. It didn't say a particular language is equal. It says all languages are equal. I've just added another language, which is a sign language within the education space. So we've got 12 languages that I'm treating them. So at no particular stage, therefore, that I will say Afrikaans is under attack, Zulu is under attack, Xhosa is under attack, or any other language is under attack. So that's the second document. The third document, which is very important to all of us, where do you want to see, how do you want to see, and when are we going to see a better South Africa? And the National Development Plan is very clear, that by 2030, there must be no child that is excluded from quality education on the basis of the color of their skin, on the basis of language, and on the basis of where they were born. So those that are fear that we need quality education, we agree with, we've got a document that says by 2030 this will happen, this will happen. So those three important documents guide all of us. And these are the documents that I really believe fellow South Africans need not to worry, or fellow South Africans need not to fear that the things that we need for our children are things that are not attainable. And let me identify those issues. The first thing, and kill me if you want, I'm going to do the opposite of everything one gentleman called Hendrik Verwoerd did in this country. That's my mission. The only thing I share with Verwoerd is my name, Hendrik, and it ends there. Amen. Beyond there, I'm going to do everything this gentleman did in the history of this country. That's what. And what this gentleman said there will be an education for black people, education for Indians, education for coloreds, education for white South Africans. And I'm saying, I'm doing the opposite. What is the opposite? I'm saying there's education for all. That's what I'm doing. So those that separated our education system, they must know it can't be separated forever. You might have oppressed our grandparents and succeeded. You might have oppressed our parents and succeeded. You think you'll oppress us? No, you'll never succeed. You will never succeed. You think you'll undermine the future of our children? No, you'll never succeed. Every child will be entitled to facilities that are available for every child in this country. And that's the bottom line. So that's the first one. In 1982, I'll give you figures. In 1982, The apartheid education system was spending 1,211 rand on white children. They were spending 146 rand on a black child. So if you say our education system is dysfunctional, who made it dysfunctional in the first place? Who made it dysfunctional when you were spending 1,211 rand on a white child and you are spending 146 rand on a black child? Maybe you don't understand these figures. Let me unpack them. It means when we are building schools, we are building schools with better facilities in your own areas and schools with worse facilities in our own areas. That is what those figures mean. So you want to tell us that be trapped in those areas, don't move to ours, because ours we are defending a language. You are not defending language, you are defending your territory. That's the bottom line. You are defending your territory. And how you are defending your territory, and I'll explain it. Kallie is here, and I'm glad he's here. One, do Afrikaners or schools that speak the Afrikaner language play rugby with schools that speak other languages? No. No! No! There's an association of sports that strictly deal with African languages, Afrikaners. So there's no social cohesion. Do you come to our choir concert? We've got a national choir concert. Have you seen Afrikaner school participating in those choir concerts? Who's excluding them? They're excluding themselves. Have you seen Afrikaner schools playing soccer? Where are they playing? Because in the Municipal League where all children are playing, you're not there. Actually, Afrikaners have privatized school sports in their own schools. Check the companies that own those school sports. We are only saying, make these facilities available for all of us. And that's one point that I want, the second point that I want. What's the third point? Good people. And I've got a history, I can unpack that history on how the Afrikaner language was developed. I have nothing about that. You indicated, you are at University of Pretoria, you are at Stellenbosch, you are at Rand Afrikaanse University. What were you doing? You're training Afrikaner teachers. You're giving them quality training. Suddenly, after 20 years, you don't even want, when I put a post for the school here, for the best principal to be a principal. Do you see Afrikaners applying for this post? When I advertise a post for a physical science teacher here, do I see application from Afrikaners coming to rectify the mistakes that we have? No. If I ask, and I will ask Kriel now, that will you agree for me to change the name of the school HF Vervoet in Pretoria? Because I don't want to be reminded about apartheid every day. Will you agree? No. Don't exclude yourself from a popular movement that calls non-racialism. Don't exclude yourself from a popular movement to build nations rather than destroy nations. Your fears are my fears. Let's discuss those fears. The first fear you have is mother tongue language. And I can tell you, without flinching, without an inch, I can tell you now, Afrikaans will exist until all of us live in this world. I can tell you without any exception, if there is a school that wants to use Afrikaans as a mother tongue, under my leadership, they have the right, they're entitled, I'll be the first one to defend them. Under my leadership. There will be no single school that will be undermined purely because it's teaching in Afrikaans. Under my leadership in this province. There will be no single school that will be destroyed purely because it chose Afrikaans as a language. There will be no single school that will be denied to practice Afrikaans. But if you want only Afrikaans in your own school alone, that's where we differ. And we can meet and deal with it. And I'll tell you why I want to differ with you on that one. I don't want schools for train buses alone. I don't want. Train buses alone. playing alone. These are claim buses. No, we can't. We can't. We'll never allow that. Kriel can say there's no school that is exclusively white, yes, but he knows 98% or 99% of the schools. And if I was malicious, and that's what I always tell people, if I was malicious, I will have an audit in all these African schools. All those children, all of them are outside 5-kilometer radius, which the law says. I can give you the list. They're outside 5 kilometers. If I want to dismantle those schools, I can do it over a signature on a pen. Did I do that? No, because I protect. Take children that are taking history in African school now. I'm asking Kriel. Go and check from grade 12, from grade 10 to grade 12, how many Africans were school children that are taking history? None. The numbers are zero. They don't even want to know the history of this country. They're not even teaching their own children the history of this country. So my argument is very clear to people. We want equal education for all. We want to build a non-racial education for South Africans. We want to open all our resources to all children of this country. Is this a sin? Is it bad to say, World School Volledige, you are just 5 kilometers away from Mamelodi High. Mamelodi High does not have a sports field. You have a huge land there. Is it wrong for Mamelodi High students to come and play soccer at World School Volledige? What's wrong about that? What's wrong about that? There's one school in the valley. The other one is an informal settlement. It has a mobile classroom. And near 1.3 kilometers, there is another school that has all these facilities, but they're refusing other children to play in those facilities. So I'm saying to you, fellow South Africans, you are better off under the government that is led by the African National Congress. Outside that, you are worse. You know yourself. You know yourself. Any other government that is not an ANC-led government in this country is not going to build all of us to be together. Nothing. So let's not scare each other. And I want to conclude by raising the 4 issues that Kallie raised. You are scared of SADU. I'm not. You can check my records. Check how many SADU members were fired in our schools for not teaching. I can give you statistics. You can ask the advocate. You can. I had the chairperson of SADU, who is the chairperson of SADU in this province. His school got less than 60% pass mark. We called him to come and account. But the opposite is true. If 75% of schools are giving us more bachelor passes in the township, it means SADU is doing good as well. It means it's doing good as well. But it's how do we separate their political influence to the education of our children. So therefore, any person that suffers from a disease, I call it sadulitis, must not come to me. So that's the first part. The second part, when you convert to English, the standard falls, Afrikaans dies. Kallie knows it's not true. Check how many former policy schools that were either Africans, when you convert them, you leave. It's you who leave the school as if you are stinking. You leave. Should we stop you for leaving? We're not going to do that. We're not going to. So, any argument, therefore, that says when you introduce a certain language, this language leads to the death of other languages, that is baseless. My child went to a school called Van Riebeck, Liar Primary School. It was uncomfortable for me as a parent. We are all there, people want to speak only in Afrikaans, but they know we are there, all of us. I stomached that for 7 full years for the sake of my own child. I don't want any other parent to go through that pain. You get an SMS that your child is sick. I can't even read it. I have to phone first call me as a leave the bad didn't man. You practice more Afrikaans. Yes, I can't practice more Afrikaans because it's not my language. So therefore, those who say they're protecting their own language in the interest, they undermine other languages. It's a fact. I support the Lions. I go to a rugby match to watch the Lions. But when I'm there, I feel unwanted, to be quite frank. It's just because at this stage is MEC of Education, then the attitude change. It must not be my title that must determine how I relate with you. It must be my character. You can take a taxi here, Kallie. You can take a taxi here to Johannesburg or to Pretoria. The driver will be nice to you. The driver will greet you. You will share whatever they're eating in that car. But the opposite is not true. So, I don't want us to start a race war, South Africans. We can't afford it. I don't want us to have hatred to each other. It does not assist. We know the history of this country. I don't want us to undermine each other's language. It's not helpful. I want us to build a non-racial education system that is accessible to all our children. That's the only thing that I need. And that education must be quality education for everyone. I don't want revenge. I don't want to undermine any other individual's rights. I want to share your frustrations. And I'm prepared here today, Kallie. If you say, MEC, the Constitutional Court has given you these powers, and I'm saying it to you, I want to develop the new powers together with you, including AfriForum. I'm not one to say, I'll sit down in my office and say, these are the new powers in our schools. It's not going to happen. I will consult, I will work with you, I will persuade you that we are better off together. And I want to conclude with that statement. South Africans, we have nowhere else to run to. This is our country. South Africans, we can't build any better country except this country. South Africans, it is better if we listen to each other rather than shout at each other. It is better that all of us understand our fears, and there's no one's fear that is superior than the other one's fears. All our fears are equal. Let's address them. And nothing will stop non-racialism in our country. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lesufi. We have now an opportunity for each participant to respond to the other. We will, in order to make sure that we stay within the hour limit that we set for ourselves, we will give each participant 5 minutes to respond to the other, and then we'll open up the floor. So Mr. Kriel will be first.
Thank you, Chair. It was good for me to listen to what the MEC said, because it gave me a background towards what his real intentions are. He paid lip service to non-racialism, together we are better, and he used all these nice terms, which I can associate myself with. But when you listen to what he said, you oppressed our grandparents, we won't allow you to do it again. You oppressed our fathers, we won't allow you to do it. Who are the you? Who's the you that you're speaking of? It seems that you are driven by vengeance, an anti-Afrikaner sentiment, and then you disguise it as together we are better. You say, who made the schools dysfunctional? We all know what happened during apartheid. Your government has been in power for 22 years. It is not Hendrik Verwoerd's fault if you go to a school now and you don't find a teacher in front of the class. If you have SATU, we can make a joke about SATU, but it's not a joke because 80% of our schools are dysfunctional. That's not a joke. And the reason is SATU. So we can call them some kind of disease and think it's funny. It's not funny if teachers are only in front of a class for less than 3.5 hours a day. And because you want to disguise this fact, you have now said, I've identified a soft target, 2.5% of schools, we will take them on, but that's not the real issue. And that's unfortunate because you are becoming a barrier to access to quality education to black children if you are focusing on the wrong target. In history, there has been many people that have blamed minorities for things that have gone wrong, saying, you did this, you did this, you did this. And I think you find yourself in very bad company by taking on that kind of stance in a debate. We know that someone like Adolf Hitler said to the Jews, it's you, it's you, it's you, while they were a small minority, and we know what the outcome is. You say you don't want a war, but you continue blaming minority communities as if there is such a thing as collective punishment. I have 5 children that want to make a future in this country, children that I, as any other parent, want to have access to good quality education in their mother tongue. And now, the disguise of access is being used to attack their opportunities and in effect also attack the opportunities of black children by not seeing who the real enemy is at the moment, and the real enemy is not Afrikaans. We also, the MEC, tried to say how well things are going, so SATU is playing a good role. When we look at the matric examination results and we get the 70 or 80% percentage, we're all happy for those children that have passed. But we tend to forget half of the children that goes into grade 1 never get to grade 12. And that means any pass figure that the education department gives us, you can divide by 2, because that is a real pass rate. That is the challenge. And we cannot allow attention from this real challenge being diverted by making Afrikaans a target, by making Afrikaans-speaking people the scapegoats. And when you say that Afrikaans schools don't participate in sport against black schools, the real problem here is also that in many black schools, and those of you that are here would know, any sport is non-existent. The education department, a few years ago, they removed physical education as part of the curriculum. So that is a real issue that we need to address. I will finish off by a call to say what happened in 1976 was unfortunate. There was a backlash against what happened there. And I would urge the MEC not to make the same mistake, because there would also be another backlash and a new struggle that would start for Afrikaans-speaking minorities to make sure that there's also a future for their children in the country.
Thank you, Mr. Kriel. Mr. Lesufi.
Regardless of anything, you remain my brother, you remain a South African. I'm not going to chase you away. But I want to say this. And we're not saying this because we are angry, as you say. It hurts. It hurts if people want to undervalue the cause of apartheid. It hurts us. It hurts if people want to say, let bygones be bygones. It hurts if people undervalue our sincerity to say, regardless of the pain you've inflicted, we forgive you. It hurts. And you come here and say, 1976 was unfortunate. That's the end of the story. No, that's what you said. 1976 was unfortunate. Move on. Who has the right to tell us to move on? So, I don't want to start a race war. I'll be the last person to do so. I was arrested by the apartheid police when I was 17 years old. 17. In a classroom, when I was still in a classroom learning, I was arrested. So you can't come and say we've got a vengeance, we've got other things. We've embraced non-racialism regardless. Let me tell you one thing that you might not be aware. You go through this township. Our people chose to be homeless, chose to be unemployed, chose to stay in an informal house so that you can stay in your own house. We didn't say we want to repossess your own houses because you put us where you are. So please don't even try to attack our commitment to a non-racial South Africa. Don't even try. Our commitment to non-racialism is real. It's real. And we've paid a heavy price for that. We've paid a heavy price to believe in non-racialism. We've accepted reconciliation as a route to build this country. Some of us were in camps when we were told, lay down your arms, let's talk. Here we are today. We are persuading you, let's talk. Let's talk and build a non-racial South Africa. And I'm happy that you didn't respond to my commitments, because I know you couldn't dispute those commitments. And I want to repeat those commitments. There's no single Afrikaner that will be told not to be taught in their home language. Finish and plan. There's no single Afrikaner that will be told that Afrikaans will be distinguished or will not be allowed in our schools. No one. I will not sign even a letter that says an Afrikaner school must cease to exist purely because it's an African school. It's a fact. I will never deny any child to access education because the language of the education, I don't like it. It does not work that way. What I want, can say lip service. We've got scars of what you're saying is lip service. We've got scars. I spent my life at modern prison for fighting for non-racialism. And you come and say it's lip service. Scars. I went on hunger strike for us to have non-racialism. You say it's lip service. It can't be. It can't be. So, I want to assure South Africans, organizations like AfriForum, organizations like Solidarity, you are better off talking to us to build a future South Africa. We are more willing to listen to your fears. We are more willing to build a non-racial South Africa. And you know, deep in your heart, there's no other organization that promotes non-racialism than the ANC. The organization that deployed me to be here. So we will never introduce rules that opposes non-racialism. Even if you feel non-racialism, it's not. And you say our schools are dysfunctional, concentrate there. Who said we can't transform at the same time promote equal education? Why do you confine us to say, look here only? No, we're not wearing work clubs. We want to see everything. Don't confine us and say, look at your dysfunctional schools. And not changing that. Let me tell you, people thought that apartheid education or bantu education is irreparable. We are repairing it, actually. Those that thought transport that is irreparable, this bundle education, we are repairing it, and I will give you figures, just one figure, just to deal with the 80% of dysfunctionality that Kallie is raising. In 2009, Kallie, no fee schools, these are township schools. In 2009, we had 7,595 bachelor passes by our learners. 7,000 in 2009. Last year, in 2016, the number is 14,540 bachelor passes in our country. So quality education is not your preserve alone. So we are not thinking that it's only you that have quality education. You don't have quality. We are building quality education. You also say forget history. And this is the part that, I must be honest, irritates me. Irritates me. Forget the past. You might not have said it now, but that's what people say. Forget the past.
Learn from the past.
Now we are talking. Now we are talking. We learn from the past, and the past said what? Said you have education for black children only, education for white children only. We want education for all our children. That's it. That's what we want. That's what we want. We want education for all our children. And let me tell you what are the consequences of your decision. Go to, and I made this example because I'm doing my case study about Hoërskool Waterkloof. The demographics around Hoërskool Waterkloof, the demographics have changed. Even fellow white people that stays around that school want to take their children in water school or a water school, Hoërskool. They want to take their children there. The demographics have changed. And you come here and say, it's only 2%, 2.5% of our schools belonging to other things. Whether it was 1% or 0.1%, all those schools belong to all of us. No one owns those schools. So we're not going to subsidize private education using public funds because the taxes that contribute to Hoërskool, Waterskool come from all of us here. It doesn't come from one race. It doesn't come from one race. So our ability, and I don't understand why you can't have class A, B, being mother tongue Afrikaans, class grade 1 C, it's Sepedi class, grade 1D is a Xhosa class. During break, our children are scoping the ball and the other one are doing whatever that they're doing together. What's wrong? What's wrong with people? Tell me. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? I'm not saying you are not going. If you want the entire school to be belonging to you alone, we differ. We differ. But if you say, and that's why I took action against Kuro, and today Kuro is the most modernized school that we have in this province. They've got an Afrikaans only class in Kuro, Rodiplat, you go there. They've got a Xhosa class, they've got an English class. During break, those children are scrumming together. When they go on school trips, they sing Nkosi Sikelele together. When they go to sporting facilities, they compete together. That's not lip service. That's real. That's what we demand and that's what we want. So I wanted to do those things. So we're not going to subsidize private education in the public education. We're not going to do that. We are going to build a non-racial education that is available to all of us. Let me tell you, South Africans. We need to stop seeing the future of our country in terms of black or white. We need to see the future of our country in terms of non-racialism. But within that non-racialism, you need to protect languages of individuals. You need to protect the cultures of those individuals. We need to ensure that every child has got equal access to equal education. That's the only thing. And I want to challenge, because it's an opportunity. And I'm glad that Kallie also raised this. I will be traveling to African communities. I want to speak to them. And I want to carry Kallie together with me when I go to those communities. But if you're a stumbling block, I'll go straight to African communities. Your languages are not under threat. If I have to say it, I'm saying it here. Your language, it's not under threat. Your schools are not under threat. Whoever says your schools are under threat, that person is taking advantage of your emotions. Don't allow them. He's taking advantage of your emotions. He's taking advantage of your fear. That is what I'm saying. There's now a near issue. There's a near issue. Yeah? Be afraid of swart mensen. Not what you want. Yeah? Be afraid of swart mensen. No. So I want to conclude this debate before we take answers on this important note. And I said it in my opening remarks. We are better off together. We are united by many things, divided by small things. Let's tackle the small things that divide us so that we can be a united force. It's only when we are powerful that we can conquer the world. But if you are divided, you are not going to conquer the world. United, we stand. Divided, we fall. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lesufi. Thank you, Mr. Kriel. We are now going to open the floor for discussion. I think just to play it practical, I would like to get an indication by show of hands who would like to pose an answer to the participants. If you could just show your hands. I would like to write down 3 names at this stage. I'm going to start right at that end. I saw a hand there. Your name? Karin. Your surname? Karin Bloom. I saw another hand there. Your name? Tabiri. Your surname? Tsoteti. And a third hand, perhaps you. Renate Barnard. With your permission, I'm going to take 3 questions now. I'll give Mr. Lesufi an opportunity first, and then Mr. Kriel second, and then I'll take a further 3 until we've dealt with most of it as time allows. So first, Karin Bloom.
Good morning. My question is for Mr. Lesufi. I've heard a lot of things that you said now this morning, and me myself was a teacher for a few years. The thing that I want to ask you this morning, you named a few things like why aren't there teachers coming to teach in Tembisa or in Soweto, or why can't children of Mamelodi High come play their sports on high school watercliffs fields. I was just wondering if you can explain for me how the practicality of this will work. How will these children from Mamelodi High be transported? We all know that teachers' salaries aren't very huge or very big. So how must someone that maybe stays in Victoria East, that is a head of a school, now drive all the way to Tembisa to be a head of a school here? I think the thing is not that we don't want to be teachers in informal settlements, it's just that it's out of our reach. At the moment, I stay 10 kilometers away from my work, and I've chosen. It's not that I don't want to be far from my work, but it's just more comfortable. So the problem is not that we don't want to help to promote dysfunctional schools. It's not always practically possible in the way that you phrase it. So, and the other thing I want to know is, another big problem that we feel we need to talk about is school fees. You know, children that is in high school, Waterloo, or other middle C schools, or Afrikaanse schools, pays a lot of school fees. I've got a friend, her child is in tussen. She pays 80 rand a month school fees. So you can build a lot of things at a school if you've got parents that are investing money into that school, and if you have children, parents that are paying school fees. You can't invest in a school or promote a school if there's no money. So when are we going to start paying? Because people will always, schools in Tembisa will always not be on the same standards as other schools where there's money being invested, not by the government, but by parents who care for their children's education. You can just respond to that.
I think we will take Tabidi Tsuteti's question as well.
Morning. Mine is simple. We can be all knowledgeable, but what we need is wisdom that comes from above. Carl, you are a wise man, but wisdom is important. We need to transform this country together. The walls and the facilities, they are there for all of us. Don't say when I didn't play soccer with you during our times, and we frustrate our kids today to fail to have that relationship because of walls, structures, because of we are staying in suburbs. This country needs a better transformation. That today, in our own engagement, we should say we owe our beings to the hills and the mountains and the valleys and the seas of this country together. Why should we have an engagement because of facilities? Why there are more important things that we're supposed to engage on as a country? Racialism. That is eating our country. That is dividing this democracy. I'm saying to the House, we belong together. We are from one. It's just the color of the skin. It's just the color of the skin. We are all souls, all of us, from one creator. So why should we be divided by the facilities? Carl, we need wisdom, not knowledge. Our fears, let's take them to God. He will heal us as He has healed this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I just want to ask one thing, please. Can the people that lived in 1976 raise their hands? Who was born in 1976? Already. Who lived by then already? I lived in 1976. I was 6 years old. My father used to be an apartheid policeman. I grew up in a white man's house, and he taught us values. Don't look at the person's skin color, look at his heart, look at his head. He took the African people, the black policemen that worked in his command, and he taught them. And he said to them, listen, you can teach yourself, learn. Don't be stupid, learn. He died about in 2008. Just before he died, we got a phone call from an officer, a senior police officer in Limpopo, phoning him and telling him, Captain Bonus, I want to ask you and I want to tell you thank you so much that you invested in me. And it was an apartheid. So Mr. Lesufi, my sister is a teacher in a black school. She got promoted a year ago. She's teaching there for about 12 years now. She got promoted last year, being a department head. She's teaching grade 4. She's now a department head as well. She said to me, Renata, my kids are hungry. I can see they are fighting with each other, and I asked them, what's wrong? Call them in a break. The child tell her, listen, I didn't eat for 3 days. My sister got into a car, a white person, being from a white policeman's house, and she assisted. She went through the whole community, and she's gathering food packages, and she's feeding those children. So, sir, I'm listening to you, and you talk about scars. This whole country has scars. You tell these people here that hasn't been, half of the people here hasn't even been born in 1976. But we are told that you are the authors of apartheid. Sir, I was born in 1970, and I was never part of apartheid. I didn't choose for apartheid. My name is Renata Barman. I was a police officer, a career police officer, and I know, you talk about rebuilding a non-racial society. I applied for a post 3 times. I was not promoted because of my white skin. And the Constitutional Court gave the government of the day, they say, no, it's fine, you didn't discriminate. And I'm not bitter, sir. And we are sitting here and we are looking at everybody here. Some of them are youngsters. I've got a boy. I want him also to excel in this country. I look at this lady. I look at everybody here. We are all parents. We want the best for our kids. And we are fighting. You are talking about you are apartheid. You were the authors of apartheid. And then you say we must yield this land. How are we going to do this? By talking and by clapping on each other. No, sir. I'm just asking you, these people, half of them sitting here, didn't choose apartheid. I didn't choose apartheid. We must leave the past behind because you know what? And we're not trampling on the feelings of people. I know how it feels to be discriminated against. I know. And I'm sorry, I'm emotional. Because I know your pain as well. You came here, you treat us as good sisters and people. And it touched my heart. Because you know what? We must see each other's hearts. So just stop this nonsense. We must take hands, please. We want the same things. There's enough in this country for everybody. We don't want to run away. My son was playing rugby for the border Bulldogs. And they were all brothers. Staying in the same hospital, playing the same rugby game. And they were partners, they were together. So I think we must stop. You say, divided we fall, united we stand. We want the same thing, sir. Thank you very much.
I'm going to give Mr. Lesufi a chance to respond first.
Let me start with you, Juan. Thank you so much for raising it. I want to start with. And that's what sometimes surprises me. If a black child is at school that needs food, you are willing to say, why can't you give that child food? But when he wants quality education, you say no. You can assist, you can pray. You know, we go to church, pray, and say, share with the poor. Take care of the poor. The poor in this country need education that you have in your schools, but they are saying no. And you can't say, you. I'm referring to apartheid people that introduced apartheid in this country. I'm not referring to you. If it touches you, it's unfortunate.
Those people are dead.
No, they're not. They're not. Party here voted for apartheid. Yeah. No, I'm telling you. Yeah, he voted for apartheid.
I'm older than that.
Yes, so I'm saying, don't say they're dead. You're wrong. Don't say they're dead. And that's a problem. That's a problem, Wana. That's a serious problem. Today, everyone is denying apartheid. Today, everyone is denying apartheid.
Not denying apartheid, sir.
I gave you time, you were emotional, you raised issues. I didn't interfere, I listened to you. Just give me that space. Listen to me. Today, we are told there was no apartheid. Today, we are told apartheid is history. If apartheid is history, I sometimes wonder why we carry the Bible, because the Bible is history. It's people of history that are in the Bible. But I carry the Bible because it builds my morals. It builds my conscience. I'm learning from it. That's what you said. Learn from the past. So, South Africans, you must not beat about the bush. We are tired of handouts. We want education. That's it. We'll be on our own. We'll be on our own. It's not us that said your grandparents must not build a cricket pitch here. It's not us. It's not us that said must not have a swimming pools in our schools. It's not us. So that is why we say where there are resources, those resources belong to all our children. Is it a sin? Is it a sin? That those resources must belong to all children of South Africa? Is it a sin? So, we are not going to, and we defeated organizations like PAC, who were saying, one settler, one bullet. We said no. One South Africa for all South Africans. We said South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. So any person that wants to justify whether the father was an Afrikaner police, he taught other people, whatever, it's fine. What does his contribution to build a non-racial South Africa? So I want to put to you, and I didn't understand your point of who was born in 1976 and other things, that your sister is teaching in a black school. That's good. It must not be only your sister, it must be all South African. It must not, you know, and that's the point. It must not be because your sister is teaching in a black school, then it's history. You must clap it. It must be normal. That's what we are asking. It must be normal that everyone must teach everywhere. That's what we're saying. It must not be an exception. And grandstand to say, because my sister is teaching in African, in a township school, we must sing hallelujah praises. It's not going to happen. It must be normal. You go to majority of the African schools just to demonstrate the issue brought, not me. All teachers there, or majority of teachers there, are either white South Africans, and all those that are providing tea and gardening are black South Africans. So a child is growing up knowing the only black person that is met in his life is a gardener or a tea lady. It's not going to work that way. So, Bernard, I want to be clear with you. I share your sentiments, I share your frustration, I share the issues that you want to raise and bring it here. What I don't share with you is that we are separate people. We are all children of God, those that believe in religion, and that let's treat each other with love, not hatred. And if reference to history makes you to be hurt, I sincerely apologize. If reference to history makes you hurt, I sincerely apologize. But we will not erase that history. We are prepared to forgive, surely not. We are not prepared to forget. So that's how we are. And sometimes I ask myself, if majority of schools were English around community of Afrikaners, will not Afrikaners request that those schools be converted to include Afrikaans? I sometimes ask myself. So, we are not promoting a particular language at the expense of another language. We say all languages are equal. So I hope I've responded to your issue. I'm not easily touched because these people are, I know a black friend, I've got friends that are black. Stop that nonsense. Don't tell us you've got a friend that is black, you are feeding blacks there. We want quality. We don't want harmful assistance. We need real. That's what we need. Real. Give us harmful assistance. We need real assistance. And it surprises me. Yeah? It Sporting facilities where we watch rugby, we are together. But when it comes to education, say no, no, no. It can't be. So, whether you think it's lip service or it's not lip service, we are better off together. Let me deal with the first question to say practicality of transport and other things. We have merged between the school called Lyndhurst Primary, it's in Lyndhurst, and a school in Alexander called Bouvet. Teachers in Lyndhurst, for the first time when they went to the township, they said, we were not aware. This is the situation. We've got teachers using their own money going to teach in Alexander. So it's not an issue of practicality. It's a willingness. It's a heart. It's a heart. And that is why we are saying those that are willing, they've got the resources, open your schools. You know, some people are selfish. Very selfish. You take a parent that can afford to take a child to work school, Vanderkloof. He's a doctor. He has the money to pay. Because I hate this generalization that all poor people are poor, can't afford to pay. No, we can afford to pay. For chartered accountants, for all people. Can afford to go and pay the 20,000 there. But you stop them to come to your schools. Where do they come? They come here in the township, where classes are overcrowded. Teachers are teaching mass meetings. Yeah. It's mass meetings, not a classroom. They are sharing. Yeah? They are poor sharing. Those that are privileged are refusing to share. And we say it's only 2.5% of our school. Even if it was 1% share, let me tell you, if you don't know the problems, and that is why people who say dysfunctional schools. Rural people believe quality education is in our township schools. Township people believe quality education is somewhere in small modesty schools. People in some part of Africa come here believing that quality education is in Johannesburg. So we are overburdened. But poor people are the ones that are accommodating everyone. While the last part, I agree with you, and that is why I want to go with AfriForum, Solidarity, and everyone to all our communities. We are created by one person. We are the same. We are the same. And Kallie I know come from Tswana. They call it Tswana. That's Tswana. So we are the same, Ratswana. And South Africans, let me tell you, see how beautiful we are here. It's an unracial society. We must not deny our children to be in this kind of environment. So I want to go with Kallie, and I hope I've responded to all your issues, Kallie. I want to go to the Afrikaner community, and I want to assure them their language is not under threat. They will have education in their mother tongue. They will be given all the support they need to develop their language, to develop their material. I will not discriminate in terms of funding because this is an Afrikaner school, I'm giving less money and give me more. I will treat all the children equally because all these children in all these schools belong to all of us, not separated individuals. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I would want to focus on what Tabile said, and I think it is a truth in the sense that we need wisdom and not only knowledge. And to get wisdom from my limited perspective is that you have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of someone else. And many times I try to do that to say, well, if my child was in a school where there are 50 children in a class, where there's a lack of facilities, what would I do? And you would look from that perspective, and that is something that we truly need to address to make sure that we have access to quality education. The Minister and I differ on what the problem is. I think a major problem still is SATU, and if we can cross that barrier, we will be able to address the issue. But then, of course, this is a two-way street. You should always also be able to put yourself in the shoes of an Afrikaans parent, which is not only, I hate it when they say Afrikaners have fears. We have no fears. We have legitimate concerns. And what is a legitimate concern? It is if you look at what happens. What we are hearing now, the same language, and I'm glad the MEC said that Afrikaans would not become under threat and nobody would be prohibited from using Afrikaans. And I'm glad to hear that. But the problem is, I've heard that same sentence many times in the past. I heard it with regard to the Rand Afrikaans University. I heard it with regard to the University of the Free State. And then you come one day and you have someone like Jonathan Jansen that says, let's make it totally English. And you're creating a barrier for people in that community. It is also a barrier to quality education if you force Afrikaans out of an institution. At the University of Pretoria, under the pressure from an anti-Afrikaner racist like Minister Bladen Zimandi, you see he forces the University of Pretoria, and they're about to make that English as well. Then I go to the University of Potchefstroom and says, no, let's bring in English. We won't threaten Afrikaans, but we might be stupid, but we're not that stupid. If you hit your head 10 times against the wall, don't come and tell us the 11th time, would not be that bad. We see what happened. There are children in the Moot of Pretoria, even Swemmer Primary School, which is a totally English school at the moment. It's a barrier to access to the Afrikaans-speaking people in those communities. So what we are saying also, from AfriForum side, I will make a huge effort to put myself in the shoes of children that don't have access to quality education. But we also ask you to do exactly the same with regard to us. And MEC, just my closing remark, I see our time is up. You are not just the MEC for ANC supporters. You are the MEC for all children in this province, even my own children. And that's why it's a pity that you still say, we are on your own, you did this, you did that. And we would ask you not to govern against minorities in this province. Okay, so you agree then that like the Constitution says, the same Constitution you've mentioned, it says in Article 29 that one of the options you need to consider is the so-called existence of a single medium institution. And please do that, and don't play emotions by saying the existence of an Afrikaans school is a barrier to anybody in this country. It's an asset of children that want to make a difference in this country, and don't govern against them.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think our time has lapsed. We said to each other, we agreed at the beginning that we would stretch it to an hour and a half. We have now reached an hour and a half. And with your permission, I would like to conclude and close this meeting. If I could summarize, what I heard from Minister Lesufi was a strong reliance upon the Freedom Charter, strong reliance on aspects of the Constitution, and a strong reliance on the principle of accessibility, if I could summarize. If I could summarize Mr. Kriel's part, there was a strong reliance also on the Constitution, perhaps certain other parts of the Constitution, and there was a strong reliance on the right of a person to receive education in his or her own language. Did they agree? I do not think they agreed. Will they ever agree? I also do not think it is necessarily possible. But is it possible for them to understand each other? I think that is indeed possible. And I think it's critical in our country that we should work towards understanding each other. And what are the commonalities that we can share, that we can build upon? I said in the beginning that both Mr. Lesufi and Mr. Kriel are parents. They are both fathers of their children. They both want the best for their children. And they both want the best for the communities that they come from. But the one thing that is very important to them is that both of them has an history. We've heard about the history Mr. Lesufi experienced, and I felt the pain that he experienced. But I heard the history that Mrs. Barnard experienced, and I also felt the pain for that experience. The key to the future lies in understanding the different experiences that different communities had, and to find ways to accommodate both of them. I would like to conclude with a little bit of irony that I saw from this debate, and perhaps we could all share the irony that's laid in there. I heard a discussion 3 or 4 months ago with a very experienced, very well-known businessman, an Afrikaans-speaking guy, an elderly person, who has built a strong business enterprise. And after his business success, he made a decision that 80% of what he earns in his business enterprises, he will plow back into the society that he comes from. And for that reason, he established a number of trusts, educational trusts, and he helps to build people. But in a private discussion after he introduced or told us more about himself, he shared his own personal history, the history of his father, who was a schoolboy immediately after the Anglo-Boer War. And as a schoolboy immediately after the Anglo-Boer War, a policy was applied by a British imperial governor known as Sir Alfred Milner. And the policy was applied in a way that on every single school playground, a kid was not allowed to use a word of Afrikaans. And if a kid was found to use a word of Afrikaans, he was given a name board stating, "I am a donkey." And during classes, that kid had to stand in the corner. He was not allowed to face the rest of the class with this label that he was a donkey. And then that kid was sent out on the playground. The only way he could get rid of that board was if he could catch out someone else speaking Afrikaans on the playground. And then the label would have been given to the other kid. And this kid would have been liberated of the label that was given to him. It's cruel. It's nasty. It's hurting. It's still hurting that old man, and he's still angered by the experience of 116 years ago. What do we say by that? We say that we all have a history. Our history did not start 50 years ago. It did not start 110 years ago when this man had this experience. It started in the beginning of everything, when one person created all of us. And when one person, at a certain stage in history, said, he created man, but he also created languages. He created the beauty of languages so that we could enjoy that we could cherish that, and we could teach our children within the languages that we got from that one single God. Let's carry on in that way, and let's use our languages to talk to each other, to debate with each other, and to take us forward towards a solution.